This is Gerardo Del Real live from the 2025 Beaver Creek Precious Metal Summit here with the Executive Chairman and CEO of Vizsla Copper, Mr. Craig Parry. Craig, what timing? How are you, sir?
Right, yeah, very well, thank you. Very well.
Overdue for a catch-up.
Yes.
The last time you and I chatted privately, you were financing Vizsla. We had a few conversations. You mentioned how you really thought the timing was perfect to raise some capital and really take advantage of the commodities market that you saw developing. And you said you wanted to get strategic investors and shareholders on that registry. And all that's happened since then is the stock is up some 125%. And in my opinion, just getting going.
Yep.
And I want to talk Vizsla Copper and why we think it's just getting going. But I have to ask you about the sentiment here at the conference. How has it been this year in contrast with other years, given the record high gold price, the surging silver price, and the very robust copper price?
Well, you got to say it's not exuberant yet, but gee, it's very, very bullish. This is the most bullish conference I've been to in probably 14 years, I think. Yeah. So look, I think there are more investors here than I've ever seen. More companies, more good stories. There's a lot of good geology out there at the moment as well. And a lot of corporates. And that's, we're hearing a lot of M&A discussion at the moment. So I think we're off to the races. We're at the sort of start of the first period, really. We've got probably 5 or 6 very good years ahead of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And you can feel, look, there's some odd things happening. I think the fact that, gold hit 3,700, but there was muted response from equities. A little bit telling. I think there's a sort of latent capacity in the equity market at the moment. We're going to see some real, I wouldn't say that everything's a 10-bagger from here, but I still think that quality names are still going to go up 10 times.
You said something that I think is important. The equities have not tracked the commodities prices thus far. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. That's a part of why that financing was so attractive when Vizsla Copper did it. You also said another thing that stands out. That's a lot of quality exploration work being done. Don't think it's a coincidence that Vizsla is onto a new discovery that looks to have some massive scale, right? At a time where, again, copper's robust. But I know what your price target is roughly, and it might have changed since the last time we spoke. I think the last time we chatted, it was copper could hit $30 a pound, and we'll talk about what Craig thinks about copper and where it could go. But I want to start talking about this new discovery with Vizsla because the scale of it seems impressive thus far.
Yeah, we're thrilled with it. Of course, we acquired the Poplar project March last year. We paid $2.7 million for it. I think a few people thought we were mad for buying it, but it already had a large deposit on it. The Poplar deposit was 2 billion pounds of copper, 750,000 ounces of gold at about 0.4% copper equivalent at surface. We figured you couldn't go wrong paying $2.7 million for that, but it had no other exploration done on the property. So when we got out there, we were astonished. We got to the southern part of the property, found this big alteration zone, 8 kilometres by 4 kilometres, with a stonking great mag target at the middle of it. I was saying for a long time, it's the most textbook porphyry target I've ever seen. We did IP across it. It's a chargeability eye with a donut, mag donut. Very strong soil geochem with copper at the centre. You've got a zinc halo around. It was textbook. We should probably get a student out there to write a thesis on it because it's probably the most textbook porphyry target I've seen. So I sort of bet my bottom dollar, and I've put a lot of money into the company. Very happy to when I saw that target start to emerge. Very, very first hole we put in, 300 metres at 0.4% copper within sort of 500 metres, I think at sort of 0.35% copper plus. So, outstanding discovery. We've now drilled it out to some extent. Haven't drilled it out, I shouldn't say that. We've stepped out 800 metres to the east. We put out some results here in the last week, last few days actually, in time for Beaver Creek. And again, there's another good hit in there, sort of near 300 metres at about 0.43% copper equivalent. And what that's telling us is this is a big system. We haven't found the edges of it, east, west, or north, south yet. So we've got a heck of a lot more drilling to do. So there'll be a lot of news flow over the next little while. We've still got a couple of holes to release from that program. So fingers crossed we get some more good hits. But what we're seeing, is scale. And we know we're in a district there. You've got Surge Copper with their Bergenburget nearby. That's 1 billion tonnes.
Right.
You've got Huckleberry, which has got a couple of porphyry centres.
Yeah.
A big resource there as well, although they're, Huckleberry's owned by Imperial Metals. And this is where it gets a bit strategic.
Right.
Because you've got Imperial Metals, they've got their Huckleberry mine. In fact, our exploration... Our head of exploration, Steve Blower, was the mine geologist at Huckleberry 20 or 30 years ago. So he's got experience there, but we're 30 kilometres away. The whole road that goes, the main road, that goes from Houston to Huckleberry, crosses through the property with grid power. It's flat, undulating terrain, and we're hitting this mineralisation from surface.
Right.
So, it'll be, if we develop can develop a project, maybe super low strip ratio stuff. So I'm thrilled with what we've got, and the scale is really interesting. As I say, we haven't found the edges. I suppose what we're seeing there is that it indicates at the moment that it should be more than 500 million tonnes. Let's see, we're a long way away. We've got to do the resource drill out yet, Matt. That will come over the next 12 months. And of course, not too further up the road is Gibraltar,
right,
which is, a major mine, multi-billion tonne type project at about 0.25%. Do I think that could be there? Absolutely. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that we found one porphyry within that massive argillic alteration and mag anomaly. I'd be very surprised if it's one porphyry centre that's giving us that scale. So we suspect there's others out there. We've generated a couple of other targets. We do want to get and test that. But I think, and here at Beaver Creek, the corporates are here, and I can tell you, the majors have been all over us. They're seeing that scale.
They're looking for scale.
In that location, you couldn't get a better project in that sense, especially when copper's going to $40.
Let's talk about that. I'm going to ask you one question before we talk about copper going to $40. Do you think scale, especially if we see a rising copper price, which I believe in, by the way, is going to hedge lower grade deposits with massive scale, especially strategic ones that are located around multiple, potential billion-ton projects?
And that's a good point. 0.4% copper used to be considered low grade, but now the average mine head grade around the world's between 0.5 and 0.6.
And you mentioned Gibraltar with 0.25.
0.25. Copper Mountain's now 0.2, just down, southern BC. Sure. Of course, their capital sunk now, so this they don't have that issue of raising capital to build the projects. Right. But the majors want to see scale. They need large, long life. If you look at Surge Copper's Bergenburget feasibility study they put out, I'm not sure whether it's a fees or a PEA, but anyway.
It's called an economic study.
That's 1 billion tonnes at that sort of grade. They're talking about 100,000 tonnes per annum. It'd be the fourth biggest copper mine in Canada. If we've got the same in this location, I think we can probably do a bit better when it comes to developing a project. So, look, I couldn't be more thrilled. The team led by Steve Blower and Chris Leslie, done a fantastic job of defining this target and then making this discovery. We've got good news flow to come. We've got a few holes still to come from this program. We then need to take a bit of time and figure out what we do next, but it's pretty bloody obvious when you haven't closed it off in any direction. We've got a lot more drilling around there to do, but it's going to grow in size. It's a fantastic discovery, and for me, it's personal success in the sense that I've been doing porphyry exploration for 28 years now. This is the first one I've found, so I'm thrilled.
Well, you took a big swing too. I mean, you talked about being, a large shareholder, taking a significant chunk of that last financing, and you've ate your own cooking. So kudos to you and the team on that front. I always respect that.
Thank you. Well, now, there's another thing I just have to touch on there, because of course we've got the Wood Jam project. We've got a big resource base across the company, 4 billion pounds of copper, nearly 2 million ounces of gold, good grade, good location. Yeah. We do also have another project called Copperview, which is just north of Kodiak's Gate Zone. Okay. And we've now done IP over that. We're waiting on soil geochem assays to come back, but this is another textbook porphyry target. So I want to get in and drill that again in October. I was just meeting with Steve for lunch then. I said, mate, we've got to get our permits and get a rig on that as soon as possible, because I'd like to be the only copper junior out there with 2 major discoveries in a year, and I think we're a chance of doing that. So there's a lot of good news to come. It's a fantastic company to get into.
I love that. I think copper's going higher. I don't know if it's going to 40. Why is copper going to 40? How do we get there?
Well, so of course, last time round, from when I joined Rio Tinto in 1999, the copper price was sort of 69, 70 cents.
Sure.
It then went to $4.60. So the metal price went up 6 times.
Sure.
On a large but localised factor in a sense in the urbanisation of a big chunk of the Chinese population.
Absolutely.
This time around it's global. You know, data centre demand, electrification, EVs, all of this, and replicating the grid in the US, that needs to happen.
Yep.
And that's offset against a completely different backdrop,
Right.
whereby all the big mines have been expanded, Los Bronces, Escondida, that's all done. I think that BHP would need to spend of the order of $20 to $30 billion to expand Olympic Dam in Australia.
Yeah.
Billion. So you need sort of, I think the numbers are about $200 billion just to keep up with where we are over the next 5 years, production. But the backdrop is, of course, it's much harder to get projects permitted. Sure. And in this 14-year downturn we've been through, not enough studies, permitting and development work's been done. So there's no way we can keep up. And BHP says that we're going to have an extra 7 million tonnes per annum of copper demand by 2030. Yeah. There's no way we can respond. So I think we're going to have the same setup. And if you look at the copper price today, near $5, if you just multiply that by 6, which was the last time, you get to $30. But of course, against that tighter backdrop, so $40. There we go.
Love it.
Yeah. Robert says 40. I should say 41.
Craig, always an absolute pleasure.
Real pleasure, mate. Thank you.